Alright guys, so today's video is going to be a little bit different than normal, but I think a lot of you guys will enjoy this. So today, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you a tutorial for a trick that I came up with, but at the same time, I'm actually going to go step by step through my thought process and show you guys how I came up with this trick. Because recently, a majority of the videos that I've been putting out have actually been original effects. And a lot of you guys have been asking me how I come up with these effects. And I want to give back to you guys and I want to show you guys my thought process on how I create my own effects. So before I actually show you the trick, I just want to give my most important tip on how you guys can create your own effects. So just to reiterate something, when I say create my own effects, I don't necessarily mean, create a brand new concept or like an original sleight in card magic. That's not what I mean by create my own effects. What I mean by that is I just take previous concepts that I know already and I just sort of combine them together to create a trick that works for me personally. And that right there would be my most important tip for you guys who are interested in creating your own effects, is first to just learn a lot of different sleights. So just start learning, the double lift, passes, color changes, switches, palms, false cuts, false shuffles. There are so many different types of sleights out there. And when you guys have a really big arsenal of all these sleights, that's when you can start to think to yourself, okay, I know all these sleights, but now how can I incorporate these into a trick? And that's really how I come up with all these tricks. I just take a lot of different sleights. I just try and learn as many as possible. And when I learn a new one, I think, wow, this is really cool. How can I incorporate this into a trick? Or how can I make a trick out of this sleight? So that right there would be my most important tip to you guys who are interested in creating your own effects. And now without further ado, I'm going to be showing you a tutorial for a trick that I came up with using this exact idea. So I took an old sleight that I knew how to do and I sort of reworked it and redefined it to work for me personally, and I sort of created a new effect out of it, and I hope you guys like it. Usually I would show a performance of the trick, but in this case, I actually don't want to show a performance because I want to take you guys step by step through my thought process on how I came up with this. So I'm not even going to tell you guys what the trick is. I just want you to watch and follow along because I want you guys to understand how I come up with these tricks and my exact thought process. So without further ado, let's get right into this reenactment, I guess you could say, of my thought process for this trick. So, all right, let's rewind to a couple of days ago. I was just playing around with my cards and I was just playing around with some older tricks that I knew how to do. And I remembered this one sleight. I was just playing around with my cards and I remembered this one sleight where if you take two cards and you out-jog them, you leave the middle card here in-jogged, just like that. And if you push those two out-jog cards, out the other side will come that in-jogged middle card that was in between those two cards. So I remember that sleight and I was like, this is actually a pretty cool sleight. How can I change this into something else? I realized that if you take the two out-jog cards, if you kind of push them in kind of quickly, like if I was going to show 8 of hearts here and I took the card out, if you did that really quickly, it could, almost be a switch. Obviously with some misdirection and some reworking, you guys could maybe use that as a switch, and then you could switch that out for a selected card or a force card or something like that. That was just an idea that I had. But then I realized there are two problems with this. The first problem is that it would probably be pretty difficult to get into this position. So how would I even get the selected card, in between those two cards in the first place? So that was the first problem, getting into this position in order to do that switch. The second problem that I found was that you have two cards out-jogged on one side and one card out-jogged on the other side. So it would be kind of awkward to have two cards here turn into one card on the other side. So in the end, I realized that probably wasn't the best utilization for the move. But then I kept thinking about it and I realized, well, since you have two cards out-jogged like this, why can't you have two cards in the middle? And then you can switch out two cards for two cards. Because if I have two cards here that are out-jogged and two cards that are in-jogged in between them, I realized, why couldn't you just push those cards out? And now those two cards from the top turn into these two cards from the bottom. And now you have a switch for two cards. And here, this is when I was like, okay, I think I'm onto something now, because this could be a really cool effect on how I can switch two cards. I was playing around with the sandwich idea. So I think I was using the red aces or something. I'm not really sure. But I was gonna take the red aces and have the two red aces find the selected card. But then I remembered that I came up with the version of the switch where you can use 2 cards out jogged and 2 cards in jogged. So I realized maybe instead of like a sandwich effect, I can just have the 2 aces be helper cards to find the 2 selections, and then somehow I'll get into the position where, let's say the 2 selections were the king of diamonds and the 7 of clubs. So somehow I would get into this position here where I have the 2 aces sandwiching the 2 selections. Just somehow I would get into this position and I would show, look, we have the red aces there, and then using misdirection, I would kind of push the cards in and turn my wrist over, and that would sort of switch the cards out like that, because now these 2 cards out jogged would be the 2 spectator selections. So yeah, now I think I'm onto something. So how can I turn this into an effect now? We can probably start with the 2 aces outside of the deck first off. And we can have the spectator shuffle the deck because there's no order to the cards. So now let's have the spectator choose 2 cards, or we can have 2 spectators choose 2 cards. That's probably a better idea. So let's say we have here the king of spades and the 6 of hearts. So now how am I gonna get these cards to be in the middle of the deck where I need them to be? I realized it probably wasn't gonna be as easy as it sounds, and there had to be some limitations. So I came up with this. I figured that you can obviously just take these 2 cards any way you want to, and you can control them to the bottom of the deck. Let's say you take those 2 cards, the king and the 6, and you control them to the bottom. That's a bad example. I probably would never use a double undercut as a control, but just for tutorial purposes, I'm just gonna control those 2 cards to the bottom of the deck. And then I would actually control 1 more random card to the bottom of the deck so that the 2 selections are actually the second to last and third to last from the bottom. The reason I'm doing this is because I thought that the easiest way to get the 2 cards in the middle would probably just be to do a simple cull of the 2 cards like that, and then you would continue spreading, and this is when the spectator would be allowed to insert these 2 aces anywhere into the deck, because you would say, okay, so we lost your selections, now we're going to be using the 2 red aces here to find your 2 cards. Have the spectator pick up the 2 red aces, and you can say, go ahead, examine them, make sure they're not fishy in any way, and as you say that, you can get into the cull position, so you can just cull those 2 cards and hide them underneath this card, and then start spreading out the cards. And that would be perfect misdirection to get into this position right here. So now I have the 2 selections underneath the deck. And I say, perfect, so now go ahead and take those 2 aces and place them anywhere you want to in the middle of the deck face up together. And they're gonna do that. They're gonna place the cards anywhere they want to, together in the middle, like this. And all you have to do now is insert the 2 selections in between the aces. So all I do is kind of lift up and insert those 2 cards in between, and then I can square up the cards like that, and then just square up all the cards, and now I'm in the perfect position for the switch. At first, I kind of just wanted to do the switch where you push the cards in and turn your wrist over and leave the cards sticking out like that, and I thought that would be perfectly fine. But then I realized, why do that when I can just kind of do this move where I turn over my wrist and then I can just instantly spread out the cards, and that would be perfectly fine as well. So let's get back into that position here. So we have the 2 aces out jogged with the 2 selections in between them. What I can do is I can just push the cards in and instantly spread out the cards, and that looks very, very fluid, and the spectator's not going to be able to notice that, you know, those are 2 different cards, because all they remember is that you have 2 out-jogged cards, which are the 2 red aces. So at this point, I figured this could be the end of the trick. So look, you place the 2 aces anywhere you want to in the deck, and you place them right here. Now, how insane would it be, like, if those 2 aces changed into your 2 selections? And I thought that would be a perfectly fine end to the trick. But then I realized, wait, you could actually do something even cooler. You could turn this into sort of like an intuition trick where the spectator placed the cards anywhere and they place the cards exactly at their selections. So if you look here, the 2 cards that they place it next to, they're obviously going to be the 2 red aces because those were the cards on the opposite sides of the 2 selections. So then I realized this could be the key to an insane ending for this trick. So I'll show you guys what I mean. If we can get back into this position here, where we have the 2 red aces out jogged, the 2 selections in jogged in between them, just like this, I'm going to execute the switch and I'm going to spread out the cards. Now look, you place the 2 red aces anywhere, but you place them right here next to this card and next to this card. Now, how crazy would it be if the 2 red aces found your 2 selections? On 3, go ahead and flip them over. 1, 2, 3. When they flip over their selections, they're gonna find the 2 red aces. And at the same time, when they're flipping over these cards, that's perfect misdirection for you to just flip over these cards. And now, this is just gonna be a crazy switch. Like, they're really not gonna expect this at all, because they think these are the aces and these are the selections, most likely. They're gonna flip over these cards, and when they see the aces, they're gonna have like 3 consecutive reactions. The first reaction is going to be, nope, that's not my card, that's wrong. The second reaction is going to be, wait, that's a red ace. He's supposed to be holding that. And the third reaction is they look at my hands and they see the cards that they're supposed to be having. And they just have like a triple freak out moment right there, and their brains are just gonna completely get fried. And I thought that would be a really, really fun ending to the trick. That would just be a really surprising ending for the spectator. And I decided, okay, I'm just gonna call it that. And that is gonna be the effect right there. So yeah, that is essentially how I created this trick. And now that you guys know my thought process, hopefully you guys have a good understanding on how to create your own effects. So go out, learn a lot of sleights, and start to create your own effects. And one thing I should mention, this is actually a very helpful tip that I learned from other magicians. I know what I just showed you was mostly creating a trick from the magician's point of view because I was thinking on how to do the sleights. But remember, you always want to keep the spectator in mind. You always want to keep the spectator's point of view in mind, because ultimately the trick is for them. You want them to experience a really cool effect. So you want to put yourself in their shoes when you're coming up with a trick and think, is this surprising? Is this a good revelation? Does this seem fair? Would this excite me if I saw a magician do this to me? Those are the questions that you want to ask yourself. And yeah, so that is the trick, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comments below, and I'll try and do more in the future if I can. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and see you guys next time. Bye.